Hey, I'm Amadeus, and this is Gay in Rural France, a podcast where I talk about queer life in the countryside, mental health, and everything in between. Let's get into it. I've had like 5 anxiety attacks just from the beginning of this morning. Welcome back to the podcast, you guys! The podcast has been so well received. Oh my god, so many new subscribers, so many people here. I am so happy that you found your way here. I just wanted to sit down with my cup of coffee. It's after lunch. It is April 3rd actually, so when you'll be seeing that will be already a bit later. But I really wanted to record a little episode, a little podcast about anxiety and about just creating the life you want, and that it's not always dreamy and easy and nice, but we all have prices to pay, right? And I think sometimes it really seems that way, that creators or creators in general, and I do include artists, I include online creators in that. All of us, we always seem to have like such nice lives, and we're always like, happy and bubbly. And I think that's also the biggest problem about this Instagram lie, that people just put out whatever is best in their life and not the low moments. And also when you look at bodies, it's like people who are totally ripped and crazy, and it's like, yeah, but it's just like, it's a picture. It's like one single shot out of a whole life. I mean, how many seconds? 60 seconds of a minute, and that for an hour, and that for a whole day, that for a whole week. I mean, we can spin it on and on and on. It's really just like a frame of time in the end. And also, if we're spending some time together, we also just spend 10-20 minutes together. And then I show you also on my other channel, Le Demi Chateau, an excerpt of my life. I try to be realistic, and I think that it's lacking in social media that we don't have enough creators showing the challenges of life in general. I'm not saying that life is always super hard. I don't want to compare myself. I know that my life is very luxurious already just by living in Western Europe and having a lot of securities around me and a lot of security systems. But then again, we only see life from our perspective, and it is sometimes really hard to just like step away from this and just be like, it's gonna be fine. And I've been doing that. Trust me, I've been doing that for 10 years now? I've been freelancing for 10 years, and I have always had anxiety attacks ever since. I mean, I'm an anxious person. I might not seem that way. When people meet me, usually they say, oh, that I'm so calm and I'm so rested, and I'm really like earthy, and I am very grounded, and I am in a certain way, but in other certain ways I'm not. And on the inside it's a turmoil, and on the inside it's like, I have this like little gay person just screaming all day. And it's just absolutely bonkers, I know. And I think it's sometimes we forget that we just like see the outside of a person, and we all carry like so many sides of us in us, So I think sometimes it's really easy to forget that, and sometimes it's at the same time it's also really easy to forget that there's other people around who actually like also have like whole life paths. They have had a whole life before, they will have a whole life after, and you meet and you intertwine, but it's just so complex. Sometimes I just find like even just like this, even just human life is like so complex for the brain to understand, that there's like 8 billion people, 80 billion, I don't even know. It's like, I would need to verify. But just around, like, like Germany, I know there's 80 million people in Germany. I mean, 80 million, already that is just like a, can you imagine 80 billion people, and all these people have anxieties, problems, hopes, wishes. They love, they fear, we all share all of this. It's just absolutely mind-blowing, I think, and it's so hard for your brain to wrap around. And sometimes I think it's good when things like this happen. Today I was really anxious because I had an interview about a project, a cultural project that I was going to introduce to the region of Nouvelle-Aquitaine, where I live, and they had a call for projects, and I suggested them a project and described quite well, I think, in the email, and then they invited me for a exchange on a Zoom meeting. So yeah, and that Zoom meeting was supposed to take place yesterday, but it couldn't because some people couldn't join in, so we did it today. In the end, it was just one person, and I was really like, oh my god, I was working myself up to it because I didn't know what to expect, and I'm a very controlling person. I would say sometimes I tend to be a control freak. I don't like the feeling of losing control of a situation, especially. I love the feeling of losing control on stage, or not losing control, but losing myself on stage when I dance, for example. And this is a feeling it's just amazing, and this is what I get also when I'm running on a runner's high, which unfortunately I also have to stop because my psoas is acting up. But that's a whole different story. So I think that, yeah, to deal with those anxieties, sometimes it helps to know that I think we all deal with them, and to just let it go as well, to just let it out, After the interview, I was really like, he had so many questions, and I was trying to answer, and it was all in French, so my French is good, but it's definitely not on I would say it's like a bad B2 kind of, like scratching up on B2. So it's definitely not C1, which would be almost like super fluent, very broad vocabulary. What I would think is my English, basically. But French is also my fourth language, so it's a bit, sometimes I get a bit stressed, and the more stressed I get, the less words actually come, the more kind of word vomit comes out of my mouth. And that's why I've gotten to the habit that I at the very start of each conversation, like a professional conversation, I say that I am not a native speaker and that I am very sorry for any mistakes I'm going to make in that conversation. And I think it's much better this way, I think it's because it just loosens up the atmosphere, and people might be able to understand more what I'm actually going through and not be weirded out by it, so yeah. And after that whole thing, I poured all of these things in. I poured all of my knowledge around that topic. I talked about it. I talked about my ideas, my wishes for this project. And then he sent me all the documents that I needed, because he said, like, yeah, the project is eligible for funding, but, well, you need to apply for the funding, essentially. So he sent me all those documents, and I just took a look, and France is very bureaucratic, and each time, like already in Germany, like applying for funding, it's each time like you're starting a new bachelor thesis. So yeah, just looking through those things just made me so anxious again, and I felt like my everything was closing up, my chest was closing up. It felt like a really heavy. I was like, okay, I need to get out of this office. So I got out of my office, which is in my little corridor. It's already like not such a good idea to have an office there, obviously, but for now it's the only place in the chateau that I can have an office. But without sacrificing guest rooms. So I went out of the office, and I was like, it was 11 something, And I was like, you know what? I'm hungry. I think I need to cook. And cooking always kind of calms me down. And I think if you have something that does that, for me, it's cooking, walking, and being just purely being outside while moving. If it's dancing, if it's walking, if it's running, if it's biking, I don't mind any of those. As long as it's outside, I'll find peace and happiness, and I find like ways to kind of feel that I'm part of this whole thing. But because I think that's the thing, when you have those anxieties and when you have those like almost like a panic attack, for me it really helps to be like grounded and to know that I am part of something, and I'm completely alone here, and I'm doing so much alone, and I'm doing so many projects alone, and I'm not saying that to get compliments from you that I do things alone. I know that I do well, but sometimes it's really it is a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of things that I have to keep in my mind, and a lot of things that I have to constantly think about. So just that can be very, very overwhelming, and organizational wise a bit like, oh my god, what's going to happen now? So yeah, I think when I started cooking, I already realized, okay, I'm coming down. I put on my one of my favorite YouTubers, just watched her vlog, and I was like, okay, this is actually helping to calm me down. And I think it's those little coping mechanisms that you find over the years if you fine tune on to your feelings and on to your emotions, that will help you go through things. I'm not saying like this is not replacing any like severe mental health issues. I still think I'm not a professional, I'm not certified to give any help, so keep that in mind. But I can only talk to you from my experience. And that's what I have been experiencing. And I think the moment I feel a connection, I feel already much more calm. And that's why I also love doing social media, because I feel that we have a sort of exchange, a connection. Something is happening. I feel that I am being part of something rather than just being my own entity. I think that's kind of like the secret, at least for me, to go through anxieties in life. And I'm, like I said, I'm a very anxious person. I get very anxious with interactions with people. I am very open. I love people, you know. It's like, I do joke sometimes that I hate people, but I don't. It's like, I love being around people, you know. But sometimes it can just get too much. Another mechanism that actually helps me a lot is breaking things down into little pieces, because sometimes I find you find yourself in front of this whole thing, in front of this mountain of things. And this goes for renovations, this goes for life things, this goes for emotions. I think if you are able to break it down into smaller pieces, then you are actually going to see that this mountain has a few steps that you can take, that you can actually go over the mountain, and not having to trying to push mountains away or move mountains, because it's not gonna happen, obviously, with brute force. So I think once you kind of like, you accept that you're overwhelmed, and I think that's the first step, because if you don't accept that you're overwhelmed, I don't think you can progress in a emotionally stable way. And I think it's okay to be like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I need my coping mechanism. I need to step away from the situation, and then assess the situation, and then see, okay, which way do I need to go? And maybe I need some in between steps. Like today, I'm thinking, I think I need to go out into the garden and do some gardening, and just like concentrate myself on another thing. And by doing that, it actually helps the other things. And I think that's also how artistic processes usually work. You're really like being in this problem, or you're very aware of the problem, but you might be doing other things, but then you will turn out with solutions for this problem eventually, because in the back of your mind, it's anyway, your brain is processing. I mean, our brains are still more powerful than the most powerful computers. So I think we should give them some credit and let your body do the work as well, And for emotions, I do it the same way. I feel there might be emotions that really overwhelm me. There's situations in life, where you just don't know how to react, and I think that's how I reacted with when I outed myself to my parents. I was very emotionally overwhelmed because I was kind of forced by my father to say that I'm gay. Well, not in a very not in a very negative way. My father was very accepting, but he kind of forced my coming out, and that just triggered a series of unfortunate events that led to me in the end moving out at the age of 16 and going to ballet school, which without the help of my parents, like the financial help of my parents, I would have never been able to. But on the other hand, it was a good solution for me because it created distance between my parents and me, which I think we really needed. But I didn't have these mechanisms and these thoughts in place where I could just take apart what's going on inside of me. And I was just raging as I was just overwhelmed and raging and finding comfort in things that maybe just temporary pleasures and things like this that just they're not solutions. It's just another band-aid that you put on a huge wound, instead of assessing what's really going on and why is this and where does it come from. And I think now, after having lived on this earth for almost 38 years and having had therapy and having had quite a few challenges in life, like going through my outing, going through ballet school and living alone at the age of 16, going through a very hard and tough regime at the ballet school, then having anorexia in ballet school, then getting out of anorexia, then ending up with body dysmorphia, which I still have to this very day, then developing sport bulimia in my early 30s. I think it's okay to fall back, I think it's totally human. It's okay, we all make mistakes, we all make things that are not good for us, and I think it's the point where we realize where we need to pull the plug on things, or when we need to assess a situation. And I think nowadays I can step back from it, assess it, and see, okay, these are the little parts of it, this is what makes the wheel turn. What can I take out now? What kind of emotions can I deal with at this very moment? And what answers can I give myself as well, I think, that always helps me. I just really wanted to share that with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast, and I will talk to you next week with another one. You can also find in the description down below the link to my other channel, Le Dreamy Chateau, where it's more about life in France and renovations and everything. This one is just a pure video channel. It's not a podcast channel like this one. So and if you've enjoyed this podcast, then please leave a like, leave a comment down below if you're watching also on YouTube, and I shall see you all next week. Until then, bisous and bye!